Well, the news that in the United Kingdom a major bit of law was made and held up in the law courts, the Supreme Court, on how people can die and die with dignity, I think is the thing. And I'm talking to you as an MHK, as a politician, but also clearly as a medical man. Yeah. How is the Isle of Man going to fit into this? Do we just follow the UK law? And what is the law at the moment? I mean, do we go down the same path?
It's a very good question. What the judgment was about was people who are in a vegetative state, people who are basically in a coma, being kept alive by machines, and who has the right to turn those machines off. Now, in the past, it's always been this a little bit of a grey area, and often they've gone to court and asked the judge to decide. But what the judgment says is if all the relatives are in agreement, particularly if there's been an advance directive, or if all the doctors are in agreement that this is not in the person's best interest to keep them alive just for the sake of it.
Because the fact is
that they can then make that decision without having to go to court.
Because people are terrified about the law, aren't they? At the end of the day, anyone working in care homes or whatever, everyone's there to keep someone alive. They cannot end their life as it stands.
That's right. But on the other hand, what the hospice movement has been trying to do is give people a dignified death. So you've got the other side of it. I think there's often been cases where you've had a difference between opinions in terms of other doctors or relatives, or different relatives thinking different things. So perhaps a wife who wants to keep their husband alive, but the children saying they've gone, we're already grieving them. Those sort of cases are very, very difficult to handle. Most of the time doctors and clinicians and nurses give all the advice and are very good at doing that. But what this decision does, I think, is bring a bit of humanity into the whole aspect, to say if you get everyone agreeing, then you don't have to go to court.
Back to what I say about the Isle of Man, though, do we literally take that, if they've changed the law, we can go in the same direction, or does it need some legislation here?
I don't think there needs to be a definite change in legislation. A lot of these sort of moral and ethical debates are taking place from day to day at Noble's Hospital on intensive care. And I think what we can do is use this as another way of broaching the subject about turning life support off with relatives, and actually use it to make sure that the best thing is done for the family and obviously for the person involved.
Have we any ideas how many people affected here? Because in the UK it's into the thousands.
It is. We've only got one intensive care unit on the Isle of Man, which is relatively small, so I think it's very rare that you get these decisions. And it's extremely rare on the Isle of Man that they have to go to court. But what this does is actually give people the security to know that their rights will be respected.
It's important, is it not, for people to make their wishes known?
It's very important. We constantly say to people that they should at least make a will, tell people how they want to be buried. But also the idea of making advance directives, particularly as you're getting older. There's a whole body of work being done at the moment about whether people want to be resuscitated, ideas of living wills, and trying to expand that from care homes to elderly people, to people who might have a terminal disease, so that they have a say in how they die.
Quality of life, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone has a point when they think that when you fall below that.
Yeah, and that changes. What you and I may feel now, 10, 20 years' time, if we get ill, our quality of life may change and our attitudes towards that may change. And so one of the main things is not to prejudge people. There are a lot of people there who are very unwell, who have severe disabilities but have a very good quality of life, and we need to respect that.
And how far away from assisted dying then, do you think, are we?
I think the whole idea of assisted dying has always been there, and I think what will happen now is that the debate will restart later on this year. There are politicians interested in looking at the legislation again, and I know that there are a lot of people on the Isle of Man interested in the subject, both for and against, but I think it's certainly a debate in terms of the right to die and the right to have that autonomy.
You obviously kept an eye on what Guernsey tried and failed to do. I mean, there was a good example of a small jurisdiction trying to go with that, and I'm sure the UK was desperately interested to see what happened there, but they couldn't get it past their legislators.
No, it's a very difficult subject to broach.
Do you think you get it past in the Isle of Man?
People are worried about this sort of slippery slope. When you look at places like Oregon, who've had assisted dying for several decades, they haven't had that. When you look at places like Holland, they haven't had the massive expansion.
Checks and balances, is that what it's all about?
It's about checks and balances, it's about transparency, but fundamentally it's about personal autonomy and the right to have a dignified death, as we started the conversation.
And you'd be the man to bring it forward if you want to go down that route, do you think?
Not necessarily.
Being a doctor, I mean, you've seen everything, right?
Not necessarily. I've seen a lot of suffering. I've seen a lot of joy in my time as a doctor. I think this is a conversation that has to be far wider than just politicians, and actually get people behind the fundamental ethics about the right to die, and making sure that people have a good death. Now, some people may not want assisted dying, but what they want is decent palliative care, and that's why the hospice movement on this island is so important. Various people in the hospice movement are very against assisted dying because they see it as some way a bit of a cop-out, and that you wouldn't provide decent palliative care. I think the two can go very well together.
Do you think we'll see it, like I say, in our lifetime? That's a bit of a pun, isn't it? But
Yeah.
do you think we will see something happen at some point?
I think it's inevitable that changes will come. I think people are looking far more at issues about quality of life, and as we live longer and as we live healthier lives, then those judgments have to be there and have to be respected.